Hello and welcome to the Impact Your Fitness podcast. My name is Jennifer Schwartz, and today I'm going to discuss an interesting perspective on how tissues, like the muscles, regrow and regenerate, and how polarity affects injuries, muscle performance, and joint health. Last week, one of my clients commented on the regeneration of the human body, and that was through her experience with a dental infection. This dental infection was massive, and the bone loss was obvious on an x-ray. Although she didn't really feel it when they got rid of it, there was quick regrowth and return of bone when they got rid of the infection. She was amazed by this. And then I posed the question to her, this happens like all over the body. Did you know that? And, we just had this moment of a small aha. And I'd like to know what you think about this and what common misconceptions about regeneration in our bodies that you have questions about. So hit us up on Instagram, of course, at Think Fit Be Fit Podcast, and mine, Jennifer Simone Schwartz. So when I asked this client, she had this small moment, like I said, and even though she comes in multiple times a month and leaves feeling great, and we are increasing her neuromuscular capacity and the electrical supply to her muscles, this client still has a lot of issues. And, when it's really hard to think about regeneration and the possibilities when you have a lot to battle with every day. She admitted that she was lost to the idea that our bodies can regenerate in multiple tissues and on multiple levels, even when she saw it happen via an x-ray around her tooth. So my hope is that after listening to this episode, that you start to think of your joints as wear and repair instead of wear and tear. The traditional narrative of wear and tear suggests that we can replace parts like a car, and that rehab professionals like myself are like a mechanic, or that the orthopedic replacement parts are just as good as the original. The body isn't a car that needs to be fixed. Our body is much more like a garden that responds to sunlight and water. And our growth possibilities are pretty vast, just like those plants. I'm sitting here at our new expanded location in Alexandria, Virginia. We harness bioelectricity to spark the wear and repair in our clients. You may have heard about this on episode 15, where I discuss how interactive neuromuscular stimulation is the future of our work here. Using bioelectricity shows us that wear and repair is possible every day. In case you've been unaware of this innovative way to use our own biology to get stronger despite tightness, pain, and previous injury, I'd like to take you through some of the peculiar history of electrical stimulation and medicine before getting into the measurable voltage of injury and how electricity can help us with wear and repair. Sometimes a good way to see the future is to acknowledge older cultures for their own innovation. Even better is to witness a biological process for yourself to see the outright privilege that is available to us. There are super old accounts of humans using electricity for healing. The ancient Greeks knew electricity was a force of healing in life. And the Greek word for amber is electron. You can acknowledge this as significant if you know what an electron does. Maybe more on that later. But amber, the stone, was used as medicine in ancient Greece because of its electrical properties. They would massage the sick with it and claimed that the amber's attractive forces would pull pain out of the body. Romans used electricity from torpedo fish, like an electrical eel, to deliver shocks to patients with headaches and hemorrhoids. I've also read about accounts in the mid-1700s where King Louis XV was entertained by electrical experiments. And one account, he had 700 monks electrically shocked for his delightment. It goes that far back. But the first measurements of injury currents near human skin were reported in 1860. And that means you can measure the current change when you have an injury. There was a textbook written in 1901, and this book, Electricity in Medicine and Surgery, enabled patients to have electrical stimulation treatments for sexual dysfunction and reproductive health. So somebody's listening to that. I'm sure they'll get on that and make a ton of money. I found an article from 1978 called Growing New Limbs. It was in the Washington Post. And this article, my favorite quote, "A brave new world, not a bit. The magical of regeneration has been with us all along, hidden in the wondrous complexity of every organism's body works. These scientists are not performing miracles, they are witnessing them." This article gives us a small part of the story of Robert O. Becker, the modern pioneer of electrical medicine. And he was an orthopedic surgeon who grew amputated limbs back with electricity, frogs' legs, rat limbs, and authored many papers on how electricity can heal human bones. Anyone who has had a natural or cadaver bone surgical fusion knows this because they are sent home with bone stimulators to help the bone fuse. These devices are delivering electricity. Funny thing is, bones are not innervated heavily like a muscle or organ, which is very curious to me. Becker's book, The Body Electric, is one of the most fundamental things that opened my eyes to the possibilities of regenerative powers in the body. Isn't it fascinating that we can regenerate without invasive needles, chemicals, or pharmaceuticals? If you want to explore this possibility yourself, this is a book that can inspire you and illuminate these possibilities. The quest to grow limbs and stimulate bone growth with electricity has given us measurable voltage to the injuries we occur as athletes and consumers of exercise. The first formal paper on regeneration was written by the great Italian physiologist Luigi Spallanzani. Spallanzani, that's it. Appeared in 1768. And that really talked about how the wound current is something that changes our electrical field. So when we have a wound, the current changes, as I mentioned before. So muscles, bones, and even fingers can grow back when these limbs are wounded, and even skin gets wounded. So this goes all the way back to the late 1700s, and we move forward with science all the way through 1958 when Becker picks up this again. And he grew into this unorthodox view on the nervous system through these experiments with rats and frogs. What he really challenged was how an action potential starts and how that changes so many biochemical pieces of our growth in the body. So what does this have to do with your tennis elbow, your calf strain, or how you can't lift as much as you used to? I think it's pretty simple. We can trigger the wear and repair mechanism in any muscle, tendon, connective tissue, yes, even ligaments, by identifying and correcting imbalance in the tissue's electrical field. And that's what we do every day here at Impact Your Fitness. This view helped some of us move injury care forward. Others in the more conventional space don't utilize this knowledge. Becker's unorthodox approach produced astounding results. Basically, applying a negative charge to a stressed fractured bone can stimulate growth. When he amputated the rat's leg, the shoulder, or anything else, he implanted an electrode and saw nerve tissue grow along with other tissues, even cartilage, in just 3 days. It doesn't keep growing, even if the electrode stays implanted. It stops growing when the stable current is reached. And this is what we call a vital current, where life is systemically sustained around the new tissue. Human experiments started in this in 1973, and the curiosity and acceptance continues to grow. I'm going to wrap up this episode with 3 of my favorite quotes from Becker's book. Quote, "Like all other injuries, a fracture produced a current of injury. In this case, derived from the nerves in and around the periosteum. At the same time, the bone generated its own current, piezoelectrically, due to residual stress in the mangled collagen matrix. These signals combined to stimulate the cells that formed new bone." And that means there's different currents around the injury, and you can measure that with a meter. It's so cool. Second quote, "Mechanical stress on the bone produced a piezoelectric signal from the collagen. The signal was biphasic, which switching polarity with each stress and release. The signal was rectified by the PN junction between the collagen matrix. This coherent signal did more than merely indicate that stress had occurred. Its strength told the cells how strong the stress was, and its polarity told them what direction it came from. Osteogenic cells, where the potential was negative, would be stimulated to grow more bone, while those in positive areas would close up shop and dismantle their matrix. If growth and resorption were considered as two aspects of one process, the electrical signal acted as an analog code to transfer information about stress to the cells and trigger the appropriate response. Now, we knew how stress was converted into an electrical signal. We had discovered a transducer, a device that converts other forces into electricity or vice versa, end quote. That is really cool how it codes back and forth, guys. That's how health happens in your body. Next quote. The electrical forces turned the key that unlocked the repressed genes. That's huge. That's meta. That's life. There's a lot going on to this healing. Setting and resetting the electrical field is key to making all of this work, and it works fast. If you want to see for yourself, check out some of our testimonials at impactyourfitness.net or on our Instagram at impactyourfitness_studio. Here are the important takeaways. We humans have electrical fields and conductive pathways in the body. Number 2, muscle building, and in a much more complex way, tissue regeneration like bone, requires well-orchestrated vascularization, innervation, formation, and remodeling of extracellular matrices to achieve healing and growth. And that's all triggered by the bioelectricity. So stay hydrated, first of all, and thank you for listening to Impact Your Fitness podcast. Remember, our bodies are not like cars that need fixing. They're more like gardens that respond to sunlight and water with vast growth possibilities. If you enjoyed this episode and want to share your thoughts or have questions about some common misconceptions or about some of this new age stuff I'm talking about, regeneration, reach out to us on Instagram at thinkfitbefit_podcast or at Jennifer Simone Schwartz. And don't forget, you can experience the power of a bioelectricity and the wear and repair mechanism for yourself. Check out some of our testimonials, and thank you for tuning in. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring the possibilities of your body's regenerative power.